Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. So I'm currently a 2L in law school, and I've been wanting to film this video for a long time. I've been keeping track of a bunch of points that I want to talk about in my notes. I don't even know what I'm going to call this video, but it's going to be something along the lines of things nobody really talks about in law school. I'm going to jump into my first point, which is the gatekeeping. A lot of attorneys, I noticed from personal experience, but also from talking to other people, that a lot of attorneys gatekeep going to law school. They gatekeep becoming a lawyer. It's so weird. They'll be full-on lawyers, have a successful career, happy life, and tell you not to go to law school. And they'll just say it was the worst decision they ever made. They don't know why they went. And I always ask myself, why are they trying to gatekeep this profession? It doesn't make sense. They're so successful, and I'd understand if it was somebody who was completely miserable with their decision, but it was always just a vague, oh, don't go to law school. And I'm not the only person who experienced this. I know a few people who have actually experienced the same thing, and it's such a jarring experience, especially when you're fully excited about the profession and want to do it with all of your heart and just know this is the path that you want to take. But I think it has to do with job protection. If they're able to gatekeep the profession, then they'll be able to keep their high salaries. There will be less competition. They won't be out of jobs. I think the same concept goes towards why a lot of people say that law school is hard, and why people say being a lawyer is hard. And don't get me wrong, law school is hard to an extent, and being a lawyer is hard to an extent depending on what lawyer you want to be. That being said, I think that people over exaggerate when they're talking about how hard it is, because they want to gatekeep the profession. If you think about it, it makes complete sense, because if you simplify the job, then a lot of people are going to be out of a lot of money, and fees are probably going to have to be lowered. Nobody's going to want to pay that amount because they think, this job is easy. They don't deserve to be paid that much. And also, if you keep the amount of people who are actually willing to go to school and become a lawyer smaller, then there's going to be less competition, and it's just going to be better for job security. But that is just something that has always sat very, very wrong with me, because it impacted me, and it's impacting so many people just like me who want to go to law school. They want to become a lawyer, but they're being deterred from joining the profession. Luckily, I didn't listen to anybody that told me not to go to law school, and I'm so happy that I didn't listen to them. But there are so many people who are looking for genuine advice and who are actually passionate about being a lawyer, but are just being told not to go. And I don't know, that honestly really makes me mad. On the same note of the fact that so many people say law school is hard, it's not that law school is easy, because law school isn't easy, but only around 20% to 30%, 20 to 30% of the semester is actually as stressful and as hard as people make it out to be, because that's the time that you're studying for your final exam. Classes are based on one final exam, and that is going to be your grade for that class. And then the GPA that you get from your first year is what you'll be using to apply for your jobs in your first summer. Depending on that, you could either be eligible to be considered for a big law position, or if that's not something that interests you, then grades don't really matter too much. Yeah, the rest of the semester is honestly not that bad. Yeah, you have to keep up with your readings, but I mean, you can make your own schedule. It's stuff that hopefully you enjoy learning about. There are so many resources online to help you understand the material too, that truly the part that really is hard and annoying is the end, which is studying for your final exam. Some classes do have midterms, but it's still not as stressful as studying for that final exam. Another thing nobody really talks about is the fact that law school conditions you to feel stressed 24/7. Even when you're not in class, you'll be thinking about is there anything that I have to read? Or I didn't really understand this concept. I have to remember to go back and try to teach myself it. Or I have to remember to do this. And it's just constant stress and paranoia about getting stuff done. And it's honestly really overwhelming and really I don't know, it's just it's a lot on your mental health, and it's really exhausting. It's just you constantly feel tired. Sometimes you won't even do anything, but it's that mental exhaustion that makes you feel you just need to take a nap. And nobody really talks about that. Everybody kind of just goes through the motions, complains here and there, but nobody really takes the time to be okay, do I need to speak to someone about this, because this is getting kind of, it's kind of affecting my life. And I think that's really dangerous. Mental health is huge in law school. I think especially at the law school I'm at now, like they really emphasize how important mental health is. So I'm really grateful about that. A lot of other places, like it's kind of brushed off. I think that's so harmful to everyone involved. But yeah, this one's gonna be kind of random, but when it comes to my eyesight, I went into law school having like pretty decent eyesight, but I've noticed that my eyesight has gotten gradually worse. And it could be due to the fact that like I don't love reading with a lot of lighting all the time, or like sometimes it'll be nighttime and I'll have my laptop screen on full brightness, which is really bad for your eyes. But my eyesight has gotten so much worse, and it's so unfortunate because eyesight's not that thing that like you can kind of just like exercise and it'll get better. It's like there's no way to really correct that other than surgery, and even then like surgery is dangerous and like who really wants to get surgery, you know? But that's something nobody mentioned before I started, and had I known, maybe I would have taken more preventative measures. Maybe I wouldn't have, but like I still would have wanted to know, you know? So now you know, if you're gonna go to law school, like figure out your eyesight situation, especially if it's already not that good, because it'll likely get a little bit worse. Something else that's a little bit deep and depressing, but like nobody really talks about it, is that when you first go into law school, you have like this spark in your eye because you're so excited to do so many things, and you're like, this is the reason why I went to law school, and you don't want to lose sight of that. And somehow along the way, like you'll eventually lose sight of why you went to law school. And it's really sad if you think about it. It's not sad in the moment, but like once you reflect on like why you went to law school, or like who you were before law school and then who you are now, it is pretty depressing. Like, I don't know, I just think that a lot of people go into law school having really big goals and like want to change the whole system and want to help a lot of people. And then you go into law school and you kind of realize like life just, sometimes it's not that easy. And it's not to say that you shouldn't go after those things anymore, but I think a lot of people change their trajectory once they're actually in law school, because then people think that success means doing this one thing, and this one thing is going to big law. So then you feel like you have to do what everybody else is doing, and it's like what you wanted to do originally is still in the back of your head, but you feel like it's not feasible because those jobs don't pay as well, or like you realize that the system's really hard to change, so then it just demotivates you, or like so many factors play in, like you also have loans to pay off, so it's like what job will help you pay that off? Like you have to be realistic with yourself. So I'd say like nobody really talks about that. It can really make you, I guess, like reevaluate why you even went into law school, like why you even chose that career. So if you're going into law school for one of those reasons, I'd say just like always remind yourself of why you went to law school, and really try to decide whether or not you're going to, I guess, sacrifice that for another thing, or like what is success to you, because success is different to everyone. And that's another thing, is learning how to be okay with not being the best, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you failed. And even if it does mean that you failed at something, there's growth in failure, and failure can be something good. I think that affects everyone who goes into law school, because you're surrounded by people who all had high GPAs, people who are all doing stuff on their free time during undergrad, like people who mostly came from pretty successful families and have, you know, connections that you don't. And I've mentioned this a lot in my previous videos, but it's so important to learn how to be okay with not being the best and not placing your value on other people's standards. Like, success is different for everyone, and don't compare yourself to another person, because your standards are not the same. And just because their standard looks more appealing to the majority of society doesn't mean that has anything to do with your standard, or whether that actually is success. And more on the failure point, the fact that you may have failed at a personal goal or something you had set forth for yourself doesn't mean that failure has to be something bad. Like, failure has such a negative connotation to it, but if you just look at it as another opportunity to grow, then like that's awesome. You have a new learning opportunity. You can become better than you were before. Like, what is bad about that? What is bad about putting yourself out there and trying something and realizing you can become better? I don't know. I think that just like reframing things is so important. And I have definitely failed at so many things. I tried out for the moot court team and I did not get on it. That's okay. Like, that is completely okay. I don't regret trying out. It was a lot of work, but I don't regret it at all. Like, I look back at that experience and I'm so happy that I did it. I feel like I grew so much as a person, and just because I didn't make it on a team doesn't mean that I'm any less of an advocate or I'm any less of a student. Like, it literally has nothing to do with me and everything to do with the person who was evaluating the students, because if another person had graded me that day, maybe I would have been on the team. Like, I don't know. But either way, it doesn't matter. Like, what matters is what I learned from that endeavor and who I am today because of it. Just don't base your value on what you achieve. Your measure of success should be something more meaningful. Something I'll touch on very briefly is the fact that when you actually calculate how much time a lawyer is spending working on something and divide what they're getting paid by the amount of hours they worked on it, don't be surprised when you calculate something that's like close to minimum wage. I don't know, like, I'll just leave you with that. It's like, yeah, sure, being a lawyer like could get you a decent amount of money, but it's like you're actually putting in the work. A big thing a lot of people say, but I'll say it again and I'll touch on it briefly, but a lot of job searching is, I guess, like stressful when you don't have the right connections. All I can really do is emphasize how important networking is, and not only with lawyers that are already in the profession, but also don't count out the people around you. I actually have to go to church now. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. The things that I was able to say were honestly the most important points that I wanted to get out there and that I thought were the most interesting, because a lot of it I hadn't heard before law school. So hopefully it helped you. Just remember to stay positive and continue being a good person to everyone, and just have an amazing day.